With FM24 just around the corner, I was given an opportunity to take a closer look at the game, and more importantly, a chance to highlight some of my favourite things that we have to look forward to in the FM24 game cycle. Now, before we get started, it is extremely important to note that any footage that you see here today was captured on an alpha version of the game, so just bear that in mind going forward. The biggest thing I want to focus on in this video, especially as I have limited time, is the match engine and all the changes that have been made to it for this year's game, especially with regard to positional play. But before we get to that, I also want to discuss the set piece creator, the faster processing, and porting a save over from FM23. So let's get stuck in. So set pieces. Since this is one of the headline features, I figured we'd take a little look at this first without getting too bogged down into the weeds, because there is actually an awful lot that you can do with it. But what I really like about it is that you can do as little or as much with it as you want. You can take complete control of it yourself, or you can delegate that duty to an assistant or one of the new set piece coaches. So when you first load into a new save, or when you port a save over from FM23, you're going to be presented with the set pieces induction. And essentially this allows you to set up some bases that you can then build on in the future. So you have a staff preference on each of these, but of course if you have your own personal preferences, you can put them in as well. For now, I'm just going to go with what our staff member here, Salt Low, has to say. So he wants a hybrid set piece, defending the box on the end of things there, central with the players in that one, of course, staying high, and then of course outswinging corners as well. And then it will set up some set pieces based around those requirements. It's important to note that those preferences you just saw are listed on the profiles of every single coach, and that will give you a better idea of what they're likely to want to do, should you want to delegate it to them. Now, I believe that the set pieces attribute on your coach isn't going to govern the quality of the set pieces they're setting up, more the ability to familiarize the team and to get the tactics of the set piece set up within the team. So if you do want to permanently delegate that stuff to your coach, you can just go up here and pick the right person to set it to. But if you want to take complete control, you literally can do that. Now, at first, this is going to look a bit daunting. It's still daunting to me as well, and I've really not fully figured it out yet. It will take some time, but it does feel like there's a lot more options in here to create the set pieces that you want, and some of the stuff I've tried already suggests that's definitely the case. I'll probably make a proper video about this once the game's fully out, but for now I'm just going to run you through the basic things. So you can set up the type of delivery, obviously in-swinger or out-swinger. You can tell them where to put that ball. The corner takers are all set in here as well, but then you've got the placement of the players. Now, this is a little different, and you'll understand why when you see the next screen. Essentially, you can just drag players around in here, but it isn't actually dragging a specific player. It's essentially dragging a slot which a player will be automatically assigned to. And each of these different categories have several different things within those categories, but they'll be ranked based on different factors. So all the changes you make on this side are visualized on this screen on the right-hand side. And if you want to look at how it will actually be set up with the players that you have, then you can just tick this and it will show you that information. But it's important to note you're not choosing exactly which players go where, more the outline for it, which means that substitutions won't affect it so much. But the key thing is where those players are actually chosen from, which is from these boxes here. So if we go into aerial threats, this here will allow you to rank your players based on your own preferences for aerial threats, and it will then assign players to the roles based on the order that you have picked over here. And each different category has different factors in it. So box threats will take into account finishing, creators will count like long shots, technicality and crossing, and recovery defenders will obviously have pace, marking and tackling. Now you can ask your assistant to do this, but it does give you complete control over this as well. The thing I really like about this is the fact that it means that you're not having to constantly move players around in between matches when you change your lineup, or in the matches when you make substitutions, because you'll already have it set up in the first place. And the other thing that I really like and have been messing around with is the priority list. And that is essentially the order in which it populates these positions based on these lists. So say you're playing a tactic that requires a short corner where you're trying to play the ball to the edge of the box to a long shooting specialist, which I have tried and it is really fun. Those players would be under the creatives category. But you may find that some of the players you want on the edge of the box are actually being put into other categories due to other attributes. So what you can do is drag the creative category up to the very top, which means it will assign those players first and it gets like top priority essentially. As I said, there's an awful lot you can do with this, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Point being, I'm quite excited about it. It's dope. But we'll revisit that in another video. One other feature that I really like of the defensive set piece creator side of things is the counter-attacking element. I.e., before, when you set players to stay forward, they would seemingly stand in kind of random positions, and often the ball would be cleared to the exact opposite side of the field where they were. Now you have control over exactly where they're standing, or at least within certain stratas. I mean, if I want to leave 3 players staying forward, I can actually assign whereabouts they are going to stay when they're staying forwards, which means that you can sort of, hopefully I get an idea of where the ball's more likely to drop from certain set pieces, and maybe create some quite interesting counter-attacking opportunities within that. The game's processing is also just noticeably faster, especially when going day to day. And this isn't just like new save bias because I've just loaded into this one. I ported a save from FM23 that was 27 years in, and it was markedly quicker, which was awesome. And on that topic, loading a save from FM23 works flawlessly. It really is as simple as clicking a button and it just loads you straight in, and you're just playing a game in seconds. In fact, I'd argue that a great way to experience all the new stuff that FM24 does have to offer is to port a save over so that you can jump straight into the action and just sort of see it in the context that you're used to. One other change you'll note is there's now 3 ways to set up a save file when you begin a new one. And that is, of course, the version that we're all used to, the real world and your world. So the real world still has all the transfers that currently exist, but they won't actually happen until those transfers happen in real life, essentially. So they're pre-programmed to happen into the future. And the your world version is where the transfers are essentially reset to the very start of the data lock, and it means that you can make all of your transfers for your team's summer window that we've just had brand new, essentially, which I really like that feature. And all these changes can also be made on the advanced setup page, so you'll see the options are down here as well. But now the match engine, and this is the big daddy for me. I genuinely really like the match engine in FM24. But let me explain how by taking you to some of the new tactics stuff. So with FM24 comes the updated positional play elements of things, and I'm going to sort of show you what that exactly looks like now, because this is something I'm really enjoying and excited about. Firstly, it allows you to play tactics like this and not look like a more, I mean, you sort of still do, but like, it's fun. So you see we've got the inclusion of the inverted fullback now on the right hand side here. You can play them on the left as well, obviously, and you'll have seen these in real life, but essentially they will shuffle over and become like an extra centre back when in possession, provided there is a space for them to slot into, and that's where the positional play comes in. And the reason I built this tactic the way it is because it will allow us to do exactly that. So essentially what should happen with this, and this is a bit strange, I realise, is we have 2 liberos, because that's the thing you can do now, and the idea being that when we're in possession, both of the liberos will actually push up into the midfield. Now, the 2 spots that they vacate in the defence will be filled by the halfback, who will drop into Upamecano's spot, and Mazraoui's spot on the right-hand side. He will then come over to make a second centre-back. And you'll actually end up with 2 players that aren't centre-backs occupying the centre-back positions, while the 2 actual centre-backs push slightly beyond that. Hence why I've chosen centre-backs with really good passing here. Now, of course, they always need a space to move into, so hence why I've put the roaming playmaker, who often pushes forward into this space to allow space for someone like De Ligt to play into that role as well. I'll show you properly when we get into a match. This applies all across the pitch now, so you'll have to be careful when building tactics that players aren't conflicting too much, but there's usually enough space on the pitch to make that work, and then they'll take into the account where their teammates are when choosing where to position themselves. So let's actually get into a game so I can show you what this looks like. So just going straight from the kickoff here, you can see all the players are in their correct positions, but watch basically once we take full possession of the ball, how De Ligt and Upamecano will both push up into the midfield, and those 2 centre-back slots will be then picked up by Guerrero and Mazraoui. So let's just take the kickoff here, and you'll see what happens once we actually start getting in possession of the ball. See, they'll push beyond, and then as we get in possession of the ball, they'll then move into a new style of play. And it just allows you to have players that move more fluidly around the pitch, and I've just been really enjoying watching the games with that setup. Let me just turn the speed up slightly, just because that's likely how I play it. But then you know when we don't have the ball, they will then slot back into those same positions and defend the ball properly, and it just allows for some really fun shapes to emerge. One thing you'll also note, just as a side note, is how much heavier the ball and the players themselves actually feel, especially when they're running. But the new ball physics certainly do make things very interesting when shots are taken. The deflections now can go all over the place much more realistically, which is just fun in general. And you'll now see one of the set piece setups that our assistant has set up for us, but there's so much variation that you can do with this. I was testing out some ideas where you were playing a short corner with the idea of freeing up a man on the edge of the box, dinking the ball to him and having him take some long shots. It doesn't work every time because obviously the opponents are going to vary in the way that they set up their defensive tactics, but there's so much cool stuff that you can do with it, and that was just the tip of the iceberg. You'll see again here, as we regain possession, suddenly the centre-backs are pushing up and those positions are now being covered over, and obviously the space that's been vacated in the midfield by the RPM moving up the pitch allows for this space here. And that, again, is something you'll have to pay attention to because you don't want players clustering too much, but provided the spaces are there, they will move into those spaces and be aware of each other on the pitch to allow for lovely little shapes to emerge, and you can just play some really nice football doing it. Of course, I'm showing you one of the more extreme examples of it in action because I wanted to show you just how drastic it actually changes the way that the game plays. Something else I've noticed as well, just from playing through, tens and tens of matches, there is a reduced amount of one-on-ones compared to what we're used to seeing in previous FMs, but that is a much more realistic representation of how football actually works. You don't see players going through on goal, clean through with the goalkeeper 10 times a match. That is poor defending there from Leipzig, though. So I think you're less likely going to be irked by your player constantly missing one-on-ones this year, because when they do get through, it's actually going to be a really good chance, and I think the chances of them scoring them seem to be much higher, and it just looks more realistic in general. If I was to critique it, of course, that would still be that the players do have a habit of clipping through each other because of the collisions, and I suspect that might just be a ceiling of the current match engine the way it is, but with the move to Unity for FM25, I suspect that will probably be a thing of the past then, potentially. Something else you'll also notice, and I think this is weirdly one of the things that best shows off the new sort of weightiness of the players and the ball, is actually when they're going to celebrate. You'll see that they sort of run off there, and there's just something about them. They just seem weightier, and I don't really know how to explain it. It's actually not the best example there. Some of the celebrations are a lot better with like the flips and the knee slides. I, of course, realise that we're Bayern Munich and we're expected to win that, but I think it's just good that you can actually do stuff like this and still have it be successful, provided you put the right players in the right positions with the right instructions, and that's what I like. The ability to actually do interesting things and have it be successful, provided you get the right boxes ticked, I suppose. So I just wanted to put some extra footage in here because I wanted to show off different types of goals and different variations variations that have been scored in this, just from my tests as well. And I've highlighted certain goals as well that show off the new sort of set pieces situations to show that very different variations of goals are being scored. You'll see there's a cut back there from that one here. This one, the ball was kicked back out again, played to the edge of the box, and this time Gnabry was able to go around the back and score. There were plenty of normal goals being scored in this as well. I just wanted to sort of highlight the different variations, especially when it comes to the set pieces as well, but obviously show you some open play stuff in here too. So you can see here, De Ligt gets the ball out wide. The ball sort of pinballs around the box, which again is exactly like you would see in real life football, which is why I'm really glad to see that sort of thing in the game. And this one's a bit more of a normal build-up play, but again, once the ball is played through to Kimmich, I feel like there's much better chance of players in those positions scoring this time around, because it is a much more high-quality opportunity. And the same can be said as well for one-on-ones, where the goalkeeper isn't always going to be able to anticipate exactly where the player's going and can slot in some goals along the lines of that type of stuff as well. You might get a better idea of the weightiness of the players in this particular set of footage as well, as you'll just be seeing more of the match engine in general. A lovely effort from the edge of the box here, going in off the crossbar too, and it's just nice to see the variations as well. One thing I will say too, and you'll notice here the way that the player lost the possession there, and again, we actually lose possession before winning it back a second time in the same passage of play, is much like FM23, the ball isn't completely glued to players' feet anymore in the way that it used to be, and it feels like it's a lot more fluid. Here the goalkeeper's just made an error, and it was able to be headed in at the back post, and I really do like that. Again, you'll see here the ball taken off the player's toe, and once more, in these situations, you'll see players are looking for cutbacks way more for me than they were in previous games. You'll see a few more examples of that in this little set of footage, and I think that's really key, because one of the biggest bugbears of the old days was players constantly shooting into the side netting, and that is just something I don't think I've seen a single example of that in all my playing so far of FM24. Nice little back post header there. The matches also just look slightly better too in general. This is the same graphics settings I use on my FM23 save, and you can see that it just looks a lot better. This goal I really like too, because of the deflection that actually takes it past the goalkeeper. You'll see that an awful lot more, but in a good way, where, you know, players aren't just sort of having the ball go through them. There's a real impact, and the ball will actually deflect more off of defenders. And again, this is one of the scenarios of us getting caught on the break while playing that type of system. And again, the one-on-one was completely through. And again, winning the ball but losing it, it's just way more representative for me of what real life football. Again, and a mistake here from the defender and the goalkeeper. That was the only example I had of that actually happening, but I want to show it to you because, again, it's more variation of the types of goals that you're likely to see in FM24. Again, Gnabry bringing it here, dinking it to the back post, and a lovely header at the back post this time, I think from Leroy Sané too. So you just sort of get the general idea of the types of goals you're going to score and concede. And this is another one, interesting, edge of the box this time from and a great header, long range effort in off the post. I've sadly run out of time here, but there is so much more that I wish I could show you in this video. But if you are excited for FM24 content, then do drop a like on the video and subscribe if you are new to the channel. I've got loads of interesting stuff coming up over the coming months. So yes, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.